One. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I want to welcome you back to another edition of your Adrenal Fix. Today, I have the pleasure and honor of speaking to a good friend of mine, Robbie Bessner. He is the owner of Therasage, which is probably, I would say, the leading industrial supplier, or just the leader in infrared technology and many more. He often laughs when I joke around and I call him really the Wizard of Oz of infrared, but it just kind of goes much beyond that in terms of environmental toxins and what we can do from a holistic sort of our point of view in terms of healing and detoxing and try to remediate the impact that the environment is having on us. So Robbie, thank you so much for being here and taking the time tonight to talk to us about what you know about infrared and beyond.
Wow, totally honored as usual. Really appreciate the opportunity to get in front of the people that follow you and your tribe, your peeps, because the stuff that we're doing is so important for natural healing. And what we're noticing is a big shift in interest, and especially you've been doing this forever, Dr. Joel. So ever since we met, now it's got to be almost 5 years ago or more. And back then you were very innovative and very forward thinking in understanding the importance of energy medicine as part of what is really harnessing a lot of the natural events, what nature's done, what basically God has put at our fingertips to help us heal and stay healthy and feel good, live very wholesome lives. And so I'm the device developer for Therasage, and we're considered kind of the gold standard in infrared device applications. Most of our devices are listed with FDA as Class 2 medical, and I spend most of my time educating practitioners and showing them basically how to use infrared technology integrated into their therapeutic, their normal protocols to improve the efficacy of what they do. So being out there, infrared is a spectrum, or it's a segment of sun energy. It's considered by many energy specialists now to be the most beneficial wavelengths of sun, because a lot of people, we live in South Florida, but your viewers are all over the nation now. And people in colder parts of the world don't understand the paranoia that's put into the sun worshipers. Don't go out in the sun, you're going to get cancer, or a whole bunch of other things. And actually, the newer research is suggesting just the opposite, that many of these frequencies that are very beneficial for natural healing, and absent those, then I think it goes a long way in explaining why the trends in healthcare are out of control now. So we'd like to spend a little time together today to expand on some of these concepts, to let your viewers know that don't be afraid of the sun, and you can get devices. Our devices, one of our mantras is that we offer very value-added products. So a lot of technology for a reasonable price. We all know, especially if, the community that I serve, in your practice and many of the high-end doctors, they're dealing with people that have chronic ailments. And so I love dealing with these doctors because we're finding that offering some natural remedies, like these natural sun energies that we've harnessed, they're seeing these people's systems bounce back. And, we all know that many of the diagnoses that are out there by some of the methods are wrong. So you've got people that are being wrongly diagnosed, they're being treated wrongly, and so they're not getting better, and they're very frustrated because really all they want to do is live healthy and wholesome lives. So as a scientist, I study ancient cultures and look at the elements of their sort of health medicinal aspects that worked for their cultures. And studying nature, I look at the various different things that were rudimentary in the birthing of a cell, of where we came from. And I also have looked at our current technology, socioeconomic elements, and I've noticed that as we get more technically advanced, like with computers and wireless networks and all these really beautiful conveniences, we've departed greatly from the base level of the way nature intended us to be. So for instance, if we were to go back, 5,000-6,000 years of the days of Buddha and Moses and Jesus and all these guys, that we'd be out in the sun all day, and we'd be getting natural energies of UV spectrum to improve vitamin D and shift our pH so we're a little bit more on the alkaline side. And then if we did get overexposed to UV, and it did affect our RNA or DNA, some of the cell structures, whatever was damaged by overexposure to UV was healed by the next spectrum, which is infrared, where we spend most of our time. So we found infrared frequencies to be almost a panacea in helping the body jumpstart. And there's a lot of great research and development that we've made in my company over the last 3 years that I'd like to share with you today. So I know you've got a bunch of questions, and I'm probably talking way too much. So
no, thank you so much. I'm glad you're taking the lead on that. So I wrote down just a couple of things, and if I don't get them out right away, then my mind, wants to ask you so many things. But let's just sort of revisit, because a common question that I get, and you touched upon, is just sort of the frequencies of the light spectrum, and we have UV and infrared, and then sort of explain the difference between what someone would call as far infrared and near infrared, and what would be the best way to apply the most therapeutic benefit with that in mind.
That's a great question, and I get that a lot, and it may seem complicated, and I do really appreciate the fact that we've got internet, and there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of misinformation. And a day doesn't go by, Dr. Joel, that I don't get a call from a confused consumer that doesn't feel good, that just wants to know the answer. They just want to know the truth. They can't read through the garbage and all the muck out there to really know. And we pride ourselves, and certainly we'd love for you to take a look at our devices, but really mostly before that, we care about the individual. We care about them making informed choices. And so we're all about educating and letting them know what to know, and then let them choose which way to go from there. So to answer you directly, there's basically 3 wavelengths within the infrared spectrum. There's the near frequencies, the middle frequencies, and the far frequencies. Starting about 20 years ago to just recently, maybe 3 years ago, so for about 17 years, the whole infrared area of devices and applications, we're focusing mostly on the far frequencies. They're the deeper frequencies that maybe penetrate, depending on the individual's body makeup, maybe 2 to 3 inches into the body. So for that reason, they can hunt down and start to bring out heavy metals. They can help the body detox. They can improve circulation. They help with weight loss. They help with nutritional upload, things like that. The middle frequencies don't quite go as far, and the near frequencies are the ones that everyone's all hyped about these days. Over the last 18 months to 2 years, there's been a few guys that have gotten on stage and have brought more attention to the UV, to the infrared near frequencies. Now, near frequencies are basically skin to around 2 to 3 centimeters deep. So what is that doing? It's helping the body produce natural collagen. So as we age, we make less collagen. That's why we have smile lines and wrinkles and stuff like that. So from an anti-aging point of view, the near frequency is better for bringing out a youthful look. It also improves the microcirculation in your skin. So when I teach infrared technology and at Hippocrates, many of the guests, the women say, oh my God, since I've been using the infrared sauna, I noticed that I don't have to wear as much makeup because my skin color, I'm more blushed. And that's just the fact that they're detoxing. And the second thing is that they're getting improved microcirculation of all the vessels, bringing more blood to the skin and making them flourish. It's blood and oxygen. So blood carries healing properties and carries nutrition. So improving blood circulation is a big benefit that infrared frequencies will do. The other things that near does is basically skin related stuff. So you've got eczema or psoriasis, anything that's skin ailment, that the near frequencies will heal. As well as if you've got scars, or if you've just had a surgery, not right away, but maybe after a week and a half after the skin mends from, let's say, the internal stitches dissolve and so forth. After that's gone, then there's usually scar tissue that's a little harder and feels differently. One of the side effects that a surgeon will always be concerned about is infection after a surgery. Why? Because you're opening up a wound, and anything that bacteria or things that might be in the air could get caught in the wound, and then they start to fester a little bit and cause an infection. One of the things that's great about infrared in the near frequencies, or if you use an infrared healing pad or these devices, is it elevates the core temperature of the wound site. So above 102 degrees Fahrenheit, most bacteria and airborne and viruses cannot thrive. So if I can raise the core temperature of a wound above 102, I'm going to kill all the bacteria or potential things that might cause infection. So plus we improve circulation of the wound site. So we're bringing more oxygen, we're bringing more healing properties, and more nutrition to the wound. These are all ways to expedite the healing process. So infrared does all of that. And the near frequencies also will improve cellular function, because what they do is they energize the Krebs cycle, which, as I know you're an expert on that. So basically, it's the powerhouse of the cell. It's what gives us a life force or an energy. And so the near frequencies will actually improve or augment mitochondrial activity, which is basically improving cell energy. So those of the patients that have fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, or have a chronic ailment that they're just drained at the end of the day because they've got a whole bunch of things going on that's kind of starving them of their life energy, the near frequencies would be a good ones to employ. At my company and my technology, we've taken kind of a holistic approach. We look at it the way nature has given it to us, which is basically full spectrum. So every day there's a cocktail of these frequencies that come into our atmosphere. And it varies in proportion based on our atmosphere. Our actual stratosphere acts like a prism and breaks these frequencies up. And based on the density of our atmosphere over a particular area, might determine the concentration of near, middle, or far frequencies at any given moment. But what we've done is we've chosen not to go just far, not to go just near, but to create a cocktail of the average of what nature delivers in their natural full spectrum every day. And that's what we employ in our devices. So when you buy something that we make, we give you both near, middle, and far. So we're dealing with skin issues, the middle issues, which are probably 3 to 5 centimeters deep, and then the far frequencies that go deeper. And so we're basically doing what nature does every day with what we've done in our applications. Does that give you a good feeling for?
It does. It's an awesome answer. Very well stated, and makes it easy to understand. I always use analogies. Again, I don't know why my brain works this way, but it's like, okay, well, that's kind of like this. But it would be the analogous to, micronutrient dosing when, synthetically we're producing these chemical compounds, but they never occur in nature like that. And so, the best way to heal a tissue is to give it the frequency or the cellular resonance that it was intended to in nature. And that doesn't mean be playing, micromanager and mad scientist with here, I'm going to outsmart your body and give it this one or two little things that it's missing on, where in fact we know that the synergistic effect of what it was intended by nature is the most therapeutic value. And that's really what you're saying with the way that the infrared broad spectrum delivery system is for the company that you have. Are all companies like that, or just some companies, or now they're catching on to sort of the marketing of, hey, people hear that infrared that is near is the best, so we're just going to do that? Like what is out there besides, broad?
Well, you have in the sauna, infrared sauna category, you have mostly far frequencies of far infrared saunas. You have a few companies that are just specializing only on near infrared saunas. So they think that's the beeswax for some reason, Dr. Joel. And what I'm suggesting is that you know, I haven't seen yet that you can overdo it on one frequency or another. But I do suggest that if nature has segmented that we're supposed to get all three frequencies to be wholesome and heal right, that is the best approach. There aren't that many. I can't think of actually one other company that really has taken the full spectrum approach as we have. But I think that there's merit in all of them. I just wouldn't go all near and I wouldn't go all far. I would just do it the way nature gave it to us, honestly. I mean, that's really why I've directed our group to take this position, at least with our devices.
Right.
So we have created basically two areas of ways to deliver the frequencies. One is in infrared sauna. There are the wooden saunas that people have known for years. They're traditional. And then there are these portable kinds. They're called pop-ups that are less money and they're more portable because they fold up and you can put them under a bed or in a closet. So for people who have the money but don't have the space, that's the answer. And some people have the space but don't have the money. That's the answer, is the portable one.
Right.
Now that you can make mistakes with the wooden ones, and I just need to tell the viewers that it's really important. The first thing you think about is the wood that they use. And I have the data, and I'm just going to be, you know, blatantly honest as I am anyway, but, you know, just to let you know, when we first started making wooden saunas almost 15 years ago now, I was making mistakes that I didn't even realize. And as soon as I realized it, I stopped. But what I was doing was I was farming my Canadian cedar in Canada. Then I was sending it to China, and they were tooling the wood down, and they were adding the electronics based on my specifications. And then I'd import them into the US. I didn't know at the time that by law, the woods coming into the US have to be sprayed with harmful DDTs, harmful insecticides, basically to kill all the bacteria and the insects potentially from other countries coming into the US. Well, it makes sense, right? To protect us. But meanwhile, now think about how smart I was. I wasn't just spraying my woods once, I was spraying them twice, Dr. Joel, out of Canada into China and out of China into the US. So, you know, moving more and getting more conscious of the community we were serving, which are infectious disease people, people with chronic ailments, people who have chemical sensitivities, so forth. And now this is 15 years. Think 15 years forward, we've got chemtrails and GMOs and all this other environmental things, you know, Fukushima that's coming over, radiation. We've got an enormous amount of shift in our outside environment and the potential toxins, not to mention EMF, which we have to bring up because that's so important to our discussion today. And also I want to talk about structured water because that's way, way important also. But for the most part, as we are evolving, we're moving further away from the way nature intended us to be in our technology, where we eat processed foods now that are so far away with all the chemicals and things. I mean, if you eat a food or you go to a food store and it's got a shelf life of 100 years, then there are chemicals in there that are allowing it to stay edible for that long, which is very different than eating a fruit that's off of the vine or tree that day. That's fresh with live enzymes and, you know, everything that you teach. And what you said earlier, Dr. Joel, about a pharmaceutical that may look right under a microscope in terms of it matching nature, doesn't have all the natural energies and all of the life force and the frequencies for the body to truly accept it in its entirety. I'm not saying that pharmaceuticals aren't good, nor that they don't have a place at the table. I do believe that there's a place for them. But I also know that anything that is synthetic doesn't substitute for the real thing. So even though the companies that make these synthetic applications, they try real hard, and again, under a microscope, they look identical from a biochemical point of view, from an energetic point of view, and from the cell acceptance of this, it falls far from the mark. But people are going to learn more about that as we move forward. And again, I'm probably off track again.
No, it's awesome. But you're gonna, it was a great answer. And then you were going to just talk about, obviously, so now what have you done to correct that problem with the wood being sprayed, twice? and for your those types of saunas, and then also what are some of the pitfalls with the pop-up ones as well?
Okay, so the answer was I stopped doing it. I stopped importing my woods, and I would strongly recommend. And this is the problem, because you can buy a sauna I saw it at Costco. You can buy them at some of the, like, Dick's, the athletic stores and stuff like that, Sports Authority, things like that. Or you can buy them certainly online from some of the infrared dealers. But the first question you have to ask are, where are the woods from? That's really, really important. If they're imported, they're sprayed. If they tell you that they're not sprayed, they're not telling you the truth. And for someone that's in a sauna to try to feel better and detox, you cannot buy a foreign wood. The problem with that is that they're a lot less expensive. You could buy a 2-person or 3-person portable, wooden sauna for maybe $1,000 that's imported. The ones that are, there's only 3 companies, we're one of them, that make the saunas actually in the US. And they're 2 to 3 times more, $3,000, $4,000. It's a lot more money. So I'm not sure if it's actually worth more in terms of the value of the health benefit. And I want to talk a little bit about that right now. But if you are so inclined to get a wooden one, I would strongly urge your viewers to buy only woods that are farmed in the US. Now, of course, you knowing me, I'm very anal about everything that I do. So I research things, and most of what we do, everything we do, is evidence-based. But I do it to the 10x or the 20x or some ridiculous exponential. All right, so our woods, we particularly chose aspen woods. And the reason why we did that was because aspens grow at an elevation of 2,000 feet or higher. And it turns out that they don't have natural predators. Most insects and bacteria don't live above that 2,000-foot mark. So what the plant kingdom has done to protect itself from, basically make a natural insecticide that's called a terpene. And so all woods that are farmed under 2,000 feet, they basically put up their own protection, which will off-gas a little bit. So some woods that are farmed that are less, that are at a lower elevation, there's going to be a little off-gassing, but it's nowhere nearly as troublesome as a DDT or a chemical that is just, going to kill you. It's really not good for you. So let's go back to the other thing. So we choose to use aspen wood because it doesn't generate a terpene, and it's farmed here in the US, so there's no chemicals. And for that reason, we've used only natural aspen wood in our wooden saunas. Now, some questions are, what's the difference between the wooden saunas and the portable saunas? Well, one thing is the money. So a US-made wooden sauna is going to be somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on the size and configuration. Portable saunas go between $300 all the way up to about $1,500, somewhere in that range. We sell our portable sauna for $800. But we feel that that's undervalued, and that's fine, because most of the population that we're serving, Dr. Joel, are generally the chronic ill patients, and they've got big doctor bills, they've got big medication bills, and we just want to do our part by keeping the price of our product at a very affordable price and offer way more in technology than even that money could buy. So that's sort of our mantra at our company.
So what would be, though, with Robbie, I understand with the spraying of the wood and domestically and the aspen, which is, I always feel like now I can go on Jeopardy and I can answer a bunch of new questions now, when I do these interviews. But anyways, as far as the near and the far and the full spectrum, they're getting that component in your saunas. But what are the differences in the actual pop-up ones? Are they also sprayed? Do they have some drawbacks? Do they generate more EMFs? Because that's a big question, which you mentioned as well. And I know even before we talked about today, and like you mentioned, you're very, I won't use the word anal, but you're very diligent with your research, and you don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face, so to speak, when you're trying to be healthy and you're doing things that are actually not healthy. So with that long-winded question, what are you finding in way of the differences between the lesser pop-up ones and the mid-range pop-up ones, and what kind of EMFs are we looking at from those machines?
Okay, great question. And I would strongly, I don't know of an infrared sauna, portable sauna, that's less than $700 that doesn't generate an enormous amount of electromagnetic fields. I'm not sure if I used the proper English. From $300 to approximately $700 in that price range, all of those saunas that in that category generate very high levels of electromagnetic fields. And I would urge the viewers to, for $50 or $60 on Amazon, you can buy what's called a Gauss meter.
You have that too, right? I mean, I've seen that at your Wizard of Oz plant there before, right? I think. Are you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You bring that everywhere you go, don't you? Like, didn't I see that at the coffee shop one time or something?
Yes, I did. I brought it with me.
Okay.
We use ones that are hundreds of dollars. We use laboratory grade devices. But for the viewers, they don't have to spend that money. They can go on Amazon and you can buy for $50 or $60. You can buy a Gauss meter. You'll be the fan of all of your friends because aside from going around your own house, seeing where there are hot spots for electromagnetic fields, you'll either go over to your friend's house or you'll lend it to your friends so they could see it. Why? Because they need to know this, especially if it's young families with little kids like you have. You know, from 0 to 15 is when the children are formulating all their neural pathways. You know this better than anybody. And I strongly believe, and there's some science behind it that I'll share with the viewers today, that these electromagnetic fields are actually, disrupting these neural pathways from finding their proper locations. I think that's an explanation why autism is, child autism and all the other social or antisocial challenges that kids have, like attention deficit disorders. I think all that stems from the fact that we've got new technology now. EMF isn't the bad guy. The problem is that it's everywhere and it's in all of our devices. My wife bought a coffee pot that syncs with my wireless network at home because it needs to be able to know exactly what time it is so it can turn my coffee on in the morning at 6:59. I mean, really? I'm on my way to go get a cup of coffee and I'm being completely surrounded by these frequencies just so that it can tell my coffee pot what time it is.
Right.
That's how, I mean, it's a funny example, but in Florida, there are smart meters, and smart meters are basically like the equivalent of a microwave oven, the amount of energy that it's throwing off.
Right.
They're pretty dangerous devices. Yes, they're telling the utility company how much utility you're using in a nanosecond, but they're also generating these high microwaves that they pull down from the towers. So EMF is really a passion of mine because I strongly believe that electromagnetic fields to us today is kind of like, and to the companies that are making devices that have high EMF, is almost like Philip Morris, what they knew about nicotine in cigarettes, but they also knew it would take many years before everybody caught on. And so now we've got technology that's ahead of the health-minded side of it, and there really aren't any health-minded people that sit on the boards that make the decisions about the devices, what bandwidths they're allowed to use legally, and the economics that are involved in it. There's too much money in these devices. So what I decided was, look, anything, Dr. Joel, anything that plugs into a wall or that's battery operated generates an electromagnetic field. This is man-made. Back in the days of Jesus, Moses, and Buddha, there wasn't electricity, there was no EMF. There was probably no ADHD, there was probably none of this problem with autism back then that we know about, right? So these are all modern diseases, these are all modern times, this is all modern technology that we're talking about, right? And you can't rely on the companies that make cell phones to protect us because they want to sell cell phones. So we need to educate our group, our friends, and our families about this so they can make a conscious choice to protect themselves and their families. For me, what I knew from my medical background and also being a scientist was that basically your brain and your body is in charge of just trying to protect itself so that it sustains in one way or another. And in EMF, you can't smell it, taste it, hear it, you can't see it. So you really can't react to it like you can if you hear a locomotive, you'd pull your kid out of the way, or a bus so they don't get run over. Can't do that with EMF because it's a silent killer, essentially, really, okay? So things like the Gauss meter will tell you, because that's scientific. You can actually point that out like a Geiger counter and see where the hot spots are and then protect yourself from that. Anyway, my thought was, if the body is here to protect you and it senses this negative field of energy coming its way, and I'm a company and an inventor that's bringing natural healing energy from infrared spectrum to you, but it's being driven by an electric current or by a battery. How do we reconcile that? What's the body going to choose, Dr. Joel? Protect itself against EMF or receive the healing energies of IR? So for me, you know what? 15 years ago when I started this journey, I didn't know. But I knew that I didn't want you to have to decide. I knew that I didn't want Dr. Joel's body to have to decide to protect or to receive. So I just figured out a way to remediate the EMF side of the equation. And all of our devices basically have no or very, very little negligible electromagnetic fields. Now, as we fast forward over the last 15 years, I mean, when I walk outside my door, I can see 4 cell towers in my area. When I plug in my zip code into this program on the internet, it tells me there are 43 cell towers within 4 miles of my house. Do you have any idea how much energy and microwaves are all around us that are basically draining us of our life energy? Well, I feel socially conscious, and it's ethically important for me not only to remediate my devices, but also to tell the public that this is something they need to be aware of, especially if you have got little kids that are growing up. That's where it has the most amount of impact. But I do think that it is another stressor. And as you know, as a doctor, and in your practice, particularly the stuff that you do as the adrenal ninja, you know how important these stresses are and what they play in adrenal stress, and which affects your whole body health, your whole chemistry inside. So we have answers for that. The infrared sauna is one of them. The infrared technology we do pulls out EMF from the body. So if you happen to be exposed in a hot spot, like you go to grab a cup of coffee at Starbucks and they've got wireless networks all around you, that stuff's being absorbed in you, but you can't feel it, but it does affect you. It pulls it out. I want to share some research with a very famous doctor in the Pacific Northwest. His name is Klinkheart. And what he did was his patients are all like West Coast guys, San Francisco, you know, the whole coastline. And he segmented his blood studies on his patients that come from the rural areas and come from the city areas. And he analyzed their blood, and, you know, I'm sure you know this, but microbes like the spirochetes, like bacteria of Lyme disease and the chronic fatigue, microbial stuff, mold, fungus, in a life cycle of all these little bugs, they basically give off a toxin that's called a neurotoxin. And you can measure that in your blood. And so what Dr. Klinkheart realized when he did his blood studies was that the neurotoxins in the people in the city come from the city versus the rural areas. It was 90 to 100 times greater, the amount of blood toxins. And the only thing that he could attribute that to, he said, hey, they're basically, they're breathing the same air, they're drinking the same water, and they're eating the same food. It's the same region. The only difference is the concentration of cell towers, which is this EMF stuff we're talking about. So Dr. Klinkheart, who's very well respected, postulates that the higher isolation of the EMF is actually energizing and activating these little bugs inside of you. Now, if you have Lyme disease and you're in a high infrared area, or I'm sorry, in a high EMF area, that's going to activate that bug to multiply, to eat some more of your resources, and to poop and put out more neurotoxins. And so I strongly believe that, you know, if you've got an ailment, particularly, you should look to remediate the EMF in your house and in your life, and certainly pull that out of the equation so that you have less of that kind of stress on you. And again, that supports your natural healing and your immune system. So long-winded answer, EMF is a good topic for us to talk about. In our devices, we have virtually no EMF. And the difference between the $300 to $700 range of the portables is that EMF. There's some fabric thing. There's something about the way you deliver it. We have a unique method to bring our infrared into the cabin and to make it full spectrum. There is a couple of models that are more expensive than us. So you think sometimes more is better, but their delivery system are 2 little space heaters on the floor. And again, the space heater puts out only far frequency, but it has high levels of EMF. So even the expensive ones may have it too. So be aware of that. The other materials that we use, we send all of our materials out to an independent testing lab called NAMSA. And it's kind of like the United Laboratory for Electricity. They're the ones that do material testing. And so all of our materials that we use are biocompatible and non-toxic. I can't speak to some of the other ones out there. I haven't tested their stuff. I'm not kind of the Ralph Nader of this, although I do know so much about what makes them happen. We offer a lot more than just full spectrum infrared. In our portable sauna, we have natural tourmaline stone that generate negative ions, which is a kind of an earthing effect. Our device is actually grounded electrically so that it brings earth charge up into the body. And that's so important now for cell communication. And then, of course, we're full spectrum, and we use gemstones to generate also natural energies inside. So we're offering a whole lot in our portable application. But I truth be told, through your practice and through you, we hope to give people enough understanding so that they have more questions to ask. And either through you or directly to us, they can call us anytime. We'll give them the straight on it, and then they can make an informed choice, this which way to go.
Yeah, I know. It sounds awesome. I almost envision, like, is this wrong of me to think, Robbie? Not only are your devices low to no EMFs, so the exposure during the procedure is minimal, if anything. And on top of that, it's a way to detox not just pathogens and spirochetes, but the EMFs that they're already exposed to. So is it wrong of me to think I can just sort of, you know, cut little holes in there and put my arms and legs through and walk around in one of those things all day, or what, you know?
Well, at least you'd be, I thought about that around Halloween, that I would be the original and just be like infrared man, you know, just my portable sauna and walk around. No, yeah, it's something that at least, you know, if you have it in your lifestyle, half an hour a day would more than offset. And I get that question a lot on the detox side. How often should I use the sauna to get a proper detox? And truth be told, if you're not fighting off a chronic ailment, half hour a day is more than enough. And it's kind of like, well, they say, really every day, Robbie? Should I do this every day? And then I ask you, Dr. Joel, I know you live in Boca, so I was wondering, in Boca Raton, Florida, do you just get toxic on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from the air, food, and the water? Or is it every day, right?
Yeah.
And you can find a place on earth that it's every other day. Please let me know, because I'm searching for that, you know, in the worst way. But the truth is, we get toxic a little bit every day, and so we should look to detox every day, either in the exercise that we do, or doing something like recruiting natural infrared frequency, or even in our diets. There's so many things we can do in our diets that support detoxing, that I know that you're an expert on that also. So your viewers know all this about you. I don't have to tell you, you know, tell them, but certainly you're more than a resource on the things that you specialize in, and the things that you don't specialize in. You make sure that you network with the guy that does specialize in it. So right. I've always appreciated that about you, Dr. Joel, that you're an amazing resource, not just for what you know, but who you know.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'm glad we became friends so long ago. I've always said, Robbie, that, you know, whether it's adrenal fatigue recovery, detoxification, healthy living, it's a verb, right? It's not something you do one time. And especially because we live in such a toxic environment, you got a lot of, you got a negative deficit or a positive, you know, toxicity that you have a lot of catching up to do to try to lower that threshold. So I guess the last thing I want to talk to, which you hinted out a little bit before, is the structure of water and the importance of that sort of in the overall picture. But then I guess that sort of meshes with the, you know, part two of that question, where you mentioned devices. And so we're not just talking about a sauna per se. We've also talked about other things that have the infrared technology. This is where the wizard of, you know, of infrared comes in, where you know, the infrared technology can be harnessed to change structures for healing. So give us a little bit of insight on that.
Okay, wow, this is a great topic, and I'll give you a two-part answer on this one. I've been fortunate because I've had, through my own life journey, and especially with the development of this technology, I've had the the great pleasure of meeting some of the greatest minds in healthcare, both from the scientific side in the lab as well as from the clinical applications. And it's helped me a real lot, not just in developing the best devices, but also developing the best ways to use them, the protocols. How do we get an optimal result from using an infrared device? I mean, it's a big $24,000 question, right? So one of the guys that influenced me is now considered to be the world's authority on water. His name is Dr. Gerald Pollack. I had an opportunity to meet him personally. We had 2 hours together, a private audience, and he confirmed stuff that I knew already, but some of the work that he wrote about in his book called The Fourth Phase of Water, which was, I think it was announced to the WHO, the World Health Organization in London about 7 years ago. So when he got on stage, and I believe he's going to win a Nobel Prize for his work, honestly, he discovered that there are certain frequencies of light energy that actually restructures and reorders the water inside of your body. So the reason why he calls the water EZ water, or the book, The Fourth Phase of Water, because most of us from our education know that water takes on 3 different forms: gaseous form, liquid form, and then a solid form. What Dr. Pollack made us understand is that the water inside of our body acts differently than the water outside. It's got a charge to it, first off. That's very important. And that has to do with what we talked about a little earlier about earth charge, negative charge coming up into our bodies. That's critical for cellular communication. Water is the transient fluid that basically gets nutrients and nutrition into a cell and allows the cell to get waste product out. And when we get sick on a cellular level, and then there's 37 trillion cells in our body. So if they all start acting up like a domino effect, that's how we get symptoms, and that's why we get sick. We heal the same way. We have to heal on a cellular level, right? And then we reverse that whole process. So water is an important part of it, and structured water is key to the equation. And I just recently was honored. There's a doctor named Lee Cowden, and I was asked to do a presentation on infrared and the way it helps brain health or neuroregeneration. And some of the concepts that I presented in this presentation a couple of weeks ago was something that has to do with water, and it has to do with the proteins that feed these 37 trillion cells of ours to make us healthy. And there's something that's called, it's a technical term that's called protein folding. So imagine these proteins, there's all these proteins that we have inside of our body that are like little strands of, little strands of spaghetti, angel hair spaghetti. And in order for them to be activated, they have to actually be folded over a balanced, structured water cell. Okay? If the water is not structured, these proteins are kind of free floating and aren't doing their job in basically supporting cell health. So in order to get protein folding, you need to have photon or light energy, and the light energy you need is infrared light, and you get that from infrared sauna. You get that from the natural sun. If we were able to get out of our offices or away from our busy lifestyles and get out in the sun, well, in Florida, it's between 1 o'clock and dusk, like 1 and 6. That time is when infrared spectrum is most present. If we're able to get it naturally, that's the best way. But second to that, the devices like saunas and healing pads and things like that will do it for you. So back to structured water. So Gerald Pollack said that there is a spectrum, or there is a frequency within the infrared spectrum that will restructure and reorder the water inside of us. He also discovered that all people that are healthy have structured water inside of them. And all people that are not healthy, the water is not structured. So imagine structure, here's a cell and here's a cell, and the water is the fluid that connects the two cells. And that water, when it's structured, is kind of like dominoes. It's all set up and it's perfectly organized. And if you froze that water and you looked it under a microscope, it would look like a snowflake, beautiful and pristine, and all the same shape. So that allows these cells to communicate, because that water is a conductor. When the water is not structured, then the cells are impaired. They can't say what they need and function properly. So water is a really, really big key. The other concept was by another great doctor that I met, and this is more of a laboratory research guy. It's a guy by the name of Gary Samuelson, Dr. Samuelson. And he was the inventor of a supplement that's called ASEA, which I know you know a lot about. It's that antioxidant, the uber antioxidant. It's basically the redox molecule. And as a child, you make a lot of redox molecules, which is basically curtails oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is the reason why we age. Okay? So as we get older, we make less redox molecules, hence we have more oxidative stress. Okay? Now, what Gary told me was ASEA basically is a supplement you drink, and it's a redox molecule supplementing the ones that you don't make as you get older. So it does lower oxidative stress, and you dose properly with the amount of ASEA so that, like any other supplement, it will revive the body because it takes away that oxidative stress. What Dr. Samuelson said to me privately was that, Robbie, what I did was pretty good, but what you're doing is really great. And so I said, what do you mean by that? Because I was just like, oh my God, I'm being floored by this. He said, that infrared sauna that you make using full spectrum frequency, it's creating a full body redox molecule. It's basically turning back your body to the when you were a child, allowing and taking care of a lot of the oxidative stress. So when you're in that sauna, you're not just detoxing. When you're using the healing pads and the other things we make that use this full spectrum infrared, you're actually creating a redox event in and around where those frequencies are touching your body. And that is just, it's just incredible. The story goes on and on and on about harnessing all these natural energies of sun energy, returning us back to the way nature intended us to be. And I think that will reverse a lot of the trends that we're seeing, the bad trends in healthcare now. So what scares me, Dr. Joel, isn't so much that we're not fixing cancer, and autism is really a big challenge these days, diabetes, a lot of the things that you know about already. What troubles me is the age groups that are starting to get affected by this. So it's not just that those numbers aren't coming down, but the age groups that are getting these afflictions are coming down. So younger people are getting these basically diseases that they shouldn't get, never get, but shouldn't get until they're clearly in their 40s or 50s or 60s, right? They're getting it in their teens. That's scary to me. So, you know, the other bad boy is the glyphosates, the Roundups in the atmosphere. And Dr. Cowden said on stage about 7 months ago that 70% of the rainwater has Roundup in it now. So that causes an upset in your GI tract, as you know. That changes your balance, and you also know that probably 80% of the disease comes from the fact of an imbalanced gut, a non-healthy gut. So these are all concerns of mine. Again, the infrared sauna is an answer because it pulls out these chemicals that your body is exposed to. You can't help it. It's in your drinking water. It's a problem.
No, I mean, it just goes to show, Robbie, that, you know, your mind is so much more than infrared in terms of making a positive change for the environment for future generations. I don't know if that's I don't even know, what is Therasos's mission statement? What is that?
Well, you know, as you know, my daughter got chronic Lyme disease 20 years ago. And shortly into it, I had a theory. I said, look, Julia, I don't want you to be defined by your title or your basically your diagnosis. As unfortunately, many people, you know, get victimized by that. I've got cancer. Oh my God, you know. Well, you know, don't be fearful of all these things. There are actually ways out of it. But as you know, as a practitioner, you've done miracles in your own practice and in your own lifetime. But so with my daughter, I said, look, let's redefine the word healthcare or wellness. And to us, our modern definition is basically living symptom-free. So in fact, people have malaria, they have hepatitis, they have Lyme disease, and they may always have Lyme disease. But if the Lyme disease inside of you, you figured out a balance in your lifestyle between the things that you eat and your activity level and all that, if you're able to live a full day, who cares what the label is? It's just a label, right? So living symptom-free is a big key, and the second is living purposefully. So what is that? That's making a contribution to your family, to your church, you know, religion, to making a contribution to your passions, whatever that is, Dr. Joel. If you're an artist, go there. If you're a singer, sing. If you're a dancer, go dance. Whatever that contribution is, make a contribution, live purposefully, and live symptom-free. So that's my mission. My mission is to take infrared technology, play my little part in the puzzle, in offering natural healing to allow people to get away from the big pharma, get away from that whole Western paradigm where they don't fix anything. They just create this continued spin of being beholden to that. People should take charge of their healthcare. They should use natural energies and natural devices that actually harness nature to help them revive themselves. They should really team up with the practitioner so that they are more in control of their healthcare and see the benefit of that. And they live symptom-free and they live purposefully. And if I can contribute through my body of work, I've done my job.
That's great. No, I appreciate the time, Robbie. I really do. I always learn a lot of information when I talk to you, and I appreciate all the information you share to us. So I guess just in parting too, you know, I like to always try to give our readers or our listeners some value besides the content. And so you've been nice enough to give me a promo code. It's DR, Dr. Joel. And what they can do is they can go to the Therasage website, which is it's therasage.com. How would they spell that and find that, Robbie?
Right. So you just go to www.therasage, spelled THERASAGE.com, THERASAGE.com. And then when they go and they shop, when they go to checkout, they'll ask for a promo code. Just type in Dr. Joel, so DRJOEL, and then they'll get your discount for just being part of your group.
Right.
And then we were happy to do that across the board on any product that they see.
That's awesome.
That's generally not what we do, but for you, you're such a special guy and your people are so loyal to you that we're so happy to be part of that program.
No, I appreciate that, Robbie. I really thank you for the time that you gave us tonight. And I know it's going to have a lot of value for the people that are listening to this. And you have done your share and continue to do your mission. So I'm very, very blessed to know you as well. So thank you so much for doing this today, Robbie.
My pleasure. All my best to you and your viewers. Happy.
Thank you. All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.